Hello again, Walk Color. I am Herb Donaldson, and this is the Walk Color Sunday radio program.
I put a spell on you.
Many years ago, when I was a kid, I would often spend time at my grandmother's house. She, like many grandmothers, was known for her cooking. Thanksgiving, Christmas, on these holidays, Grandma's food was a thing to be expected. However, every year, in May, just before the summer kicked in, she would cook in even greater quantities. As a kid, I thought maybe she's in a good mood and feels like cooking up a storm. One year, I asked her why her cooking spirit seemed to always strike at this time of year. She said because it was May 20th. Last year, the Walk Color Sunday presented its July 4th episode, offering a bird's-eye view of the festivities that took place in Sop Choppy. This year, we want to walk you down another path into a different celebration of independence. This is Freeing Walk Color, the May 20th homecoming episode. May 20th, 1865. Union General Edward M. McCook stands on the steps of his headquarters, now known as the Knott House, in Tallahassee, announcing to a small multitude of slaves, both old and young, that President Abraham Lincoln has ended slavery in Florida. Under the terms of the Emancipation Proclamation, they now possess the same rights and entitlements as every white man, woman, and child. As of that day, they were all free. The word emancipation informs us that something has been released and is no longer restricted. But what could this mean to a people who, for generations, were told what they could and could not do? This episode is not meant to be a step back, but a forward look at the descendants, both black and white, who share the American inheritance of freedom. Of all the holidays and celebrations that exist in our area, May 20th is the one in which blacks, whites, Native Americans, and numerous immigrant populations were forced by decree to not only deal with one another, but to treat each other as if the basic concepts on which America was founded had finally been set into motion.
My dad was foreman of the Southwood Plantation back before it became Southwood Community. And it was when Ed Ball owned all that land. They had crops, they had cattle, it was a working farm. My dad would tell me stories about it, and he said every Emancipation Day, all of his workers had the day off. And so it was just an off day for everybody. And he would always go to work because he said there was always something that he had to be doing. And he said there was one older man that would always come. And I can't remember his name, but he would say, Mr. So-and-so, you've got the day off. And he'd say, Mr. Roden, Abraham Lincoln gave us our freedom, but he didn't give us our food. And I need to work. And I always loved that story because it just showed such a conviction and such an incredible work ethic.
When they did it in the early days, it was like a big thing. They celebrated it like a 4th of July, And even some people call it homecoming. They sent out stuff to people who were away to come home, just like they did for July. And they would come. Oh, food would be everywhere, And we used to say even the dogs knew when it was, because every dog in the neighborhood would show up at the church on days. Because they had what they called it spread like outside. It would always be outside. Everybody brought their food in a box to the church. When the church was over, everybody go outside. They have all this food, all these boxes, put all the fruit. You didn't hardly know what to eat. Cakes and everything you could think of. The preacher would come and he would do what the preacher supposed to do. I was a young boy back in those days. Preacher, hurry up and get through so we can eat. It wasn't too interesting what the preacher was saying. But young, all we wanted to do was get to eat. As time grew on over the years, you learn to, why we do what we do. And it become a part of you.
May the 20th, we would start 2 or 3 days before that. Anybody that wasn't real busy working would go and grub earthworms.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say working where? Was this
in the turpentine.
Okay.
At the turpentine still, or on the farm where because we always had fresh stuff there that we shared with all the people, because everybody worked at one time or another there.
Got it.
But we would grub earthworms and put them in nail kegs, little nail barrels of nails that come in like 50-pound barrels, you know, and we'd put them in those with some wet sawdust to keep them. And then on May the 20th, everybody would load up on the trucks and cars that we had, and we'd go out to Sopchoppy River at Burnt Bridge. The site is still there, but the bridge is gone. There may be some pilings that still burned. They used to be. We would fish both up and down the river. Everybody would. When lunchtime came, some of us would start cleaning fish until we had enough clean for everybody. Then we would fry them up. Now, if Sopchoppy River was up high, we would go down Panacea and get mullet and clean them and fry them up.
Now, your father did most of the cooking and stuff.
That's right.
And what was your father's name again?
Bruce C. High. But my older brother, he was there. He helped. He drove truck. He, helped out on the turbine until he got out of school, and then he went on. He went to work for the railroad, and he was general manager of Seaboard Coastline Railroad before it became CSX, and he retired shortly after it became CSX.
The Wakulla County Christian Coalition, the Greater Mount Trial Primitive Baptist Church, G-Signs Gallery, the Wakulla Library, the Wakulla Historical Society's Genealogy Group, and my own company, the Palaver Theater, partner to present Wakulla County's 2012 May 20th celebration. Among the films, documentaries, and other events, a photo exhibit, Facing Liberty, was mounted, highlighting Wakulla's African American population from the early 1970s to as far back as the 1800s. The panel discussion, Speaking Freely, took a look at what it meant to experience freedom in Wakulla County, along with the memories of how the county celebrated May 20th in days past. Panelists included Betty Jean Slater, Lacey Hudson, Doris Mackey, Joseph Williams, Josephus Shingles, and George Nelson. What does May 20th mean to you?
Celebrating our freedom. It was May 20th, what we were told when we got free. So our ancestors started celebrating it.
Okay.
The same as her, celebrating our freedom. And 20th of May, I was young at that time, but it was a great day for us down at Mount Trial Church. And I was just so sorry when it just went to a stop, and was glad to hear that it was getting it up again, because it was really a big day for us down there.
As a people, 20th of May gave us the idea that we could do those things that we couldn't have done in the past. The cooking, the eating, the joyful times, and this kind of thing. We as a people just couldn't, we couldn't do that. We didn't have the resources, nor did we have the space, nor did we have the permission. And we had to get permission to do everything. It sounds bad now, but as time passed, we have been able to do some things and to represent ourselves in various aspects of life.
I always ask the question, why do we have the 20th of May and the 4th of July? The answer that I got was the 4th of July is for the white folk, the 20th of May is for the blacks. And so there was something seemed to be wrong with that. And so throughout the years, my 67 years, I have gotten in quite a bit of trouble for being on this side.
Where I live now, years ago, white folks didn't live nowhere near me. Although poetry had freedom, but I think it was just one step. The word freedom was out, but you didn't have fully freedom to do as other citizens were doing. If things hadn't changed to what it is, most likely I would have had to move from where I am now, the place where my parents was living there since slavery time. That's some of what freedom means to me. See, I have neighbors of the white race in front of me, behind me. We speak, we associate, occasionally we visit one another. Before this happened, or before freedom happened, we didn't see anything like that. We all know about the railroad track. Blacks live on one side, the whites live on the other side. Don't dare to go across or be caught across the railroad track after dark. But now I thank God that I have lived to see an extended freedom where to the point that if something should happen to me where I live now, I have an opportunity to go across the street to speak freely to my white neighbors. That's something what freedom means to me.
The discussion of what freedom means to an individual opened up a great deal of conversation about Wakulla's past and future hopes. Josephus Shingles and Doris Mackey.
There was an effort put forth to try to get Wakulla County in single districts. Now, in some areas, if there was a person running for an office, that person only had to run in that particular district. That was the beginning of blacks getting elected to public office. But for whatever the reason, Wakulla seemed to have been moving just a little bit faster, but dragging their feet in doing that kind of thing. The whites began to move in, and they took folk land, is really what happened. The majority of Wakulla County was owned by blacks. Much of the land that is existing now that whites own, it was once owned by blacks. Yeah, about this mule and 40 acres, that was the kind of thing that was happening in Wakulla. The majority of the land was owned at that time by the whites, but they gave Aunt Sally a piece because Aunt Sally had kept my children, she raised my children, and this kind of thing, so I'm going to give her a little piece of land. We as a people were able to start picking up a piece of land. But then we got tired of it, and we associated land with farming, and all of the things that we had seen on the farm and the things that we had to do and all this kind of thing, we just didn't want no part of it. And as a result of that, we lost our land. We as a people were never told or shown the responsibility that went along with ownership, not only of our land, house, or anything else. We saw the house up on the hill and all. We didn't know what it took to keep that house up there. I guess it's difficult to talk about way back there when there has been so much that has happened since the late 30s, the early 40s, and a lot since 1885 when they said blacks are free. That did not mean a thing. The only thing that meant to us is that we did not have to get up 4 days in the morning, go to the field, and work from sun to sun, and then go home and do what Master wanted us to do.
Thinking back, I grew up in a real religious home, and we were taught to pray. My mother would read the Bible every day, and she would say, before the end of time, the bottom rail is coming to the top. And I often think about that. And we come a long ways. We're not there yet, but we've come a long ways. But all during this, even my older children went through some of it. I always taught them, like he was saying about the parents, I taught my kids, you can be what you want to be. You don't have to just be nothing because you brought up to believe that. And I'm not bragging, but I thank God and I'm proud of it. All my children are educated. I brought them up mostly without their father. My last baby, I remarried and her daddy died when she was 7. All of them is educated, went to college, and I think I have a granddaughter, it's a judge. And that's something I never would have thought would have happened with me. A little girl from Slop Chopping got a granddaughter who's a church. So I have a lot to be thankful for my parents and thankful that God brought me this far. I just want to thank the Lord for that.
So give me your first and your last name.
Doris Mackey.
And where are you from, Mrs. Mackey?
I'm from Slop Chopping, Wakulla County.
Were you born and raised here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I left here and stayed in Miami for 20-some years. And then after my husband passed and my daddy got sick, I moved back to Slop Chopping.
So what does May 20th mean to you?
May 20th, it was a big celebration. I was young at that time, the last that I remember having it here. But it was a day that we looked forward to. I didn't understand as a child exactly what the meanings of it was, but I know it was a day that we couldn't wait to come, and I knew it was for the blacks. I knew that much. It was celebrating something for the blacks, but I had to learn later exactly what it meant. But that was the biggest day of our life down here. Other than going to church, that's all we wasn't allowed to go nowhere else, but the church and just something like that.
Do you feel that any of that's still like alive today for you at all? I mean, being at this event, what does it mean to you to actually be here today and be a part of it?
It recalls all that old times coming back, and the time that the black people got together and really enjoyed it, and they knew the meanings of it. It was enjoyment in one way, and then it was something else in another way. But for the young people, it was really enjoying a big celebration and the food and the planting of the maypole and things like that. And I was just so sorry, but I had left here after I grew up that it had stopped having it. And when I saw in the paper that they were coming back, I called my brother in Tallahassee, because that was a big day for him. That was his birthday. And back then, you didn't have no big birthdays. I told him, I said, well, you don't have anything to worry about because that's a big day for you, because they have all the food and the fish and all that stuff, and it was just a big birthday for him, the 20th of May. So I called him and told him about it.
Given some of the things that you did when you were younger, having to work your way you worked for people coming into the back doors and everything like that.
I experienced that. I was working as a young girl. I always, ever since I was big enough, I tried to get a job working somewhere. And the work is a mother's helper. You get around and work in the kitchen. I did that after I left and moved to Tallahassee. And down here, I experienced it real bad because they were just like that. You couldn't go in the front door. You had to go in the back. But you went all through the house, clean the house, sweep the front porch and everything. But when you leave, you had to go out the back. And you couldn't sit to the table and eat. You couldn't eat the same time they was eating. You'd help them put all the food on the table, and they would sit there and talk and eat as long as they wanted to, and you sit in the kitchen and wait till they get through. My cousin, he was a yard man, and I said they treated him as if he was an animal or something. They'd fix his food in a tin plate and sit down on the back porch, and that's the way he ate. And I was thinking to myself as a child, I wouldn't have ate it. I'd have waited till I got home, if they gonna sit out there to me like that, just sit it on the floor on the back porch and call him and tell him his food was here, That's just the way they treated him. He didn't even come in the house.
Although I and many others of my generation have experienced subtle racism, a drop of cyanide can hurt you all the same. Through the panel, I came to learn that my so-called pain was nothing compared to those who came before me, Josephus Shingles and George Nelson.
The current black youth does not try to find out what does it take to get where you want to be. We tend to say that I want what I want, and if you got it, I'm going to get it. That's a lot of why you hear about the black-on-black crime. Blacks are still reluctant to go and commit these kind of things in the white community. And the white community is just as obstinate as the black community. I don't want you over in my community. But since 1865, well, we were free. Constitution said we are free. Yeah, but with freedom comes a price. There's a price you have to pay for it. And I think the sooner we, not only blacks, but whites as well, the sooner we realize that there is a price to pay, then I think the better the situation is going to be. You got it, I want it, and I'm going to take it. It's not the price that is paid. And we as a people are paying dearly for it. The prison situation is a good indication of the fact that the price we are paying is an unfair price. And it's not simply because we are black, but simply because the whites don't want us to have a fair shake. Back in the 30s, we could only do what we were told to do.
Right.
And what we were allowed to do. That might sound kind of bad now, but I can tell you that some of that resentment still exists. Not only from the black side, but from the white side.
I have thought long and hard on this. Take Gaston County, take Wakulla County, put them together, put them side by side. You will see two separate, entirely different pictures. Where you have Gaston County majority in office in position of black. Wakulla County majority office in position authority white. What I envision a world with my grandchildren, a Gaston, Wakulla County mixed together, where you are judged by the contents of your character, not by the color of your skin. Until this generation, smaller generation, can to focus on that, we're still going to be out there in left field.
Mr. Nelson speaks about working at the local gunpowder factory, formerly known as the Olin Corporation, when it first opened.
Freedom has never been free. All men are created equal. When Olin first came to Wakulla County, back then we had to, even me being a young man, had to call a young white child Mr. Miss. That was something that we had to do. And I remember my younger brother refused to do it, and he was chastised a lot. But when Olin came into town and they brought all the shifts in together, I believe it was Mike Waters, I believe that was his name, and he called us in and he said, as long as you work at this plant, you will not call anybody Mr. or Mrs. You will call them by their first name. And that was one of the breaking points in my life. And here in Wakulla County, I was beat, sent to the cycle ward, bloody from head to toes. After I got out of the hospital, they took me to jail, and my family posted a bond, a ridiculous bond. They charged me for everything. If there's anybody that should be biased or prejudiced, I think I should. But if you look at my checkered past, my life, my great-grandkids, the only one that I have, the other half of their family are white. I have learned to forgive. I won't forget. I will never forget. But I have learned to forgive. My friends think they shed blood in the battle of Vietnam. My blood was shed here in Wakulla County.
This kind of dialogue, this is the kind of thing that is going to make the situation better. Now, when Joe was talking about across the railroad, I could sit on this side of the railroad and think what I wanted to about what's going on the other side of the railroad. But if I didn't go over there, or I didn't converse with the people on the other side of the railroad, I had no idea. I could just think. And that is the kind of thing that we're talking about now. We're talking about these young people, but in the early days of integration, I used to make a comment that the only salvation for integration, and this might not sound good, and it didn't sound good to most people, as I said, is a few more funerals. A few more funerals that on both sides, some of these diehards, white and black, is going to have to die before the situation get where it ought to be now. That sounds kind of bad, maybe. But that is, we have to look at it from a reality point of view. Why are we here now as a group? Not as blacks or whites, but as a group. Why are we here? We are here so that we can better understand each other. And if we don't understand each other, we are going to still be sitting over there butting heads. That you're doing it to me because you're white, and you're mistreating me because I'm black. That's going to have to be a two-sided affair. And until we do that, we can look back. You know, we've come a long way. And not only just black, we as white people, we talk about we've come a long way. Whites have come a long way too. But we still, both sides, got a long way to go. That we understand each other. That I don't stand over here and look over there and say, oh yeah, y'all over there, and you over there and say, y'all over there. No. It's our situation. And that is the kind of thing that's been happening since 1885, 65, or whenever that was.